talk about my resolutions for the year 2025. I'm not a huge believer in the whole New Year's resolution thing. I think that a lot of the times the resolutions that we end up making can put too much pressure on us or set ourselves up for failure, that halfway through the year then you look back and see you haven't accomplished what you wanted to accomplish, or it just makes you feel bad about yourself because honestly you weren't setting very attainable goals. We all kind of have the ones that we tend to gravitate towards, whether that's eating healthier, less screen time, working out more. It can be any of those things. And honestly, any resolution that you make can be great and helpful as long as you're able to set an attainable path to still make that resolution achievable. And so I think they can be really, really good if done right. Again, I'm not usually one that makes hard and fast resolutions, but as I was thinking about January, now that we're almost halfway through, I wanted to set a couple of book resolutions for myself. Not necessarily ones that will affect my entire life, but just my relationship with books and what do I want to accomplish specifically in the year of 2025. Grab your drink, cozy up, and let's talk about it. Obviously, the first one that we have to talk about is how many books I want to read in 2025. So my reading goal of 2024 was 50 books, and for me, that was a lot. It still feels like a lot, even though I surpassed it by 18 books. I ended up reading 68 books in 2024. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to set my goal as for 2025, my initial reaction is, oh, well, if I surpassed my goal so much in 2024, I can do it again and I can read maybe 70 books or 80 books or really push myself to read as many books as possible. But the longer that I thought about it, the more I didn't want to push myself that hard, because what's amazing about 2024 is that I read 68 books, but my goal was 50. So all of the 18 books that I read on top of my goal of 50 felt more like bonus material, and it was really exciting to keep picking up books, but at the same time, the pressure had been lifted off of me where if I wanted to, I could quit and not read any more books for the rest of the year, knowing that I had already reached my goal. And in a way, that made reading really, really fun and enjoyable for me towards the end of the year. So I don't want to overstretch myself in 2025 because I think that that can make reading feel really stressful and intense, which is not what we are here for. There's also two other things working against me. One, I work a full-time job, so I'm not necessarily sitting around reading all day, even though that is exactly what I would like to do with my life. Two, I don't like audiobooks. I really want to like audiobooks, but I can't pay attention. They don't captivate me. Usually whoever is reading the book is actually just super annoying to me, and I just can't connect with them. They don't feel like I'm reading. I don't feel like I'm gleaning anything from a book, and that is 100% a personal preference. I wish I liked audiobooks because I think it would make it so much easier for me to read a lot more. At least for now, that's just kind of how I feel about them. So we are talking about every book that I can physically read this year. So I decided to set a goal of 60 books. This does push me a little bit more than my initial goal of 50 in 2024, but I think that it still gives me a lot of room to either hit that 60 book goal or surpass that 60 book goal and just kind of chill for the end of the year. Wherever that kind of lands, I'm challenging myself a little bit more than 2024, but I don't think I'm going too far where reading will become more of a burden than it is an enjoyable experience. So that's the first one. The next thing that I'm making a resolution in 2025 actually has to do with this YouTube channel. I have been on booktube for almost an entire year now, which is absolutely crazy to think about. It honestly doesn't even feel real. In some ways it feels like I've been doing this for 100 years, and in other ways it feels like I've been doing it for a month. But it's been so fun to grow on here and find a community and find people to talk about books with. I actually did not want to start this channel. I was very, very against it, but my husband is the one that encouraged me to start it because honestly, I talk about books to him the same way that I talk about books on this channel. And he basically was like, well, you're gonna do it anyway, so you might as well just film it and see if you can find a community of people on the internet to talk about books with. So there we go. That's kind of what got me here. And in the beginning, when I started last January, I knew nothing. I literally knew nothing. I didn't know how to film anything. I didn't know how to edit anything. I didn't know how to post on YouTube. And so my husband was basically doing everything for me because he's been in the YouTube space for a while now and kind of knew what he was doing. I felt completely helpless without him. But over the year, I've kind of started to learn how to do it myself. So 1 year later, I edit all of the videos by myself, which is a huge accomplishment for me. I set up a lot of my own videos. I don't have to wait on him doing it anymore. I'm experimenting with thumbnails, which is definitely something that still needs a lot of work, but it's just cool to see the growth from last year to now and just like my confidence level in what I'm doing and creating here on YouTube. However, there is one area that I really need to get better at, and that is vlogging. I've said it before, before, I feel like I'm really bad at vlogs. Filming them, editing them, talking in them, it just doesn't feel as natural to me. But you guys have said that you really, really like the vlog style videos, so I am determined to get better at it in 2025 and post more vlogs this year. I actually decided to look on Skillshare, who happens to be the sponsor of today's video, to see if they had any classes available that could help me in this goal to get better at vlogging. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes in countless categories. And guys, I literally found the perfect class to help me get better at vlogging. It's called Romanticizing Your Life, a beginner's guide to creating vlogs for YouTube by the one and only Carrie Cakes. She walks you through everything to do with making a vlog from start to finish, and it has been so helpful so far. One of my favorite things about taking this class is that Skillshare has a learn by doing approach to their classes, where members can actually create and submit work to be reviewed and critiqued by the community that is also taking the same class as you, which I think is so valuable and helpful as you are learning a new skill. So as January is the time for resolutions, if you are looking to pick up a new skill in the new year, Skillshare is definitely a great resource for you to check out. They were also kind enough to give me a special offer for you guys. The first 500 people to click the link in my description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So go click that link to get started today, and thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this part of the video. Okay, so the next thing on my list of resolutions for 2025 is maybe a little bit silly, but it's definitely something that's been bugging me that I want to get better at, which is be more active on Bookstagram. I started my Bookstagram account midway through 2024, and I love posting on there. I love talking with you guys on there and sharing little short snippets of books that I've read and what I like about them, but I am really bad at it. And so I know I need to be more active and I know I need to be better at it, but I'm trying to set goals for myself where, again, it's attainable and achievable. So instead of trying to force myself to post once or twice a day, I just want to be able to post maybe once or twice a week. And that's probably a good starting place. But I really have enjoyed getting to talk with you guys over Bookstagram, in the DMs, in the comments. You guys have all been so nice, and it's been really, really fun to see what you're reading. And I feel like I can engage in more conversations there than just in the comments of YouTube. So I really do want to be better at being more present on that platform, just because I think it's fun and I think it's a good way to engage with everybody. The next thing on my list is a little bit more specific to reading. I want to read 20 books off of my physical TBR in 2025. So over here on my shelf, most of the books on this side are all books that I still have not read yet. You can see a lot of book of the month picks on there, some other ones that I've just picked up from bookstores, but I have, give or take, about 100 books on these shelves that I have not read. So my goal of 2025 is to read at least 20 of those. Doesn't matter when, doesn't matter what month. I'm not going to do the whole book buying ban where I have to read X amount of books before I can buy a book. I'm not going to do that to myself. I just want to read in 2025 20 of the physical books, and we'll go from there and see what else happens. And finally, this is something that I'm actually going to accomplish today with you guys. I want to reorganize my bookshelves. Little history about me and my bookshelves. I've been collecting all of these books and this library since I was about 16 or 17, but I've never had a bookshelf. That entire time, I've literally just been stacking my books on the floor. I think I actually have a video posted on here from earlier in the year where I'm sitting in front of my book stack, and it has just grown and grown and grown over the years, and I still never got a bookshelf. Well, it got to a breaking point this past year where I just couldn't do it anymore. It was very difficult to grab books out of the stack. It was impossible to organize them. We also were doing a lot of work in this room where we were painting, we were putting new floors in, and moving those books around felt like an impossible task. But they moved around my house in many different areas. They went from the bedroom to the living room, common room area, to the family room, all because they just had to keep moving because they were so in the way. And so when I finally got these shelves, it literally was one of my most favorite days of the year. It was so exciting to organize these shelves and put all of my books finally up here. However, I think I need to redo it because I don't love the way they're organized. I have series together even if I haven't read the entire series. So on the shelf behind me, there's Powerless, there's City of Brass. I have the Shadow and Bone series here where I've read maybe 1 or 2 books out of the series, but I haven't read the entire thing. But I wanted to keep the series together, but it kind of makes shelf organization very confusing and weird, and I'm just not loving it. So to start the year off early in January, I'm gonna reorganize my shelf with you guys and take you on a little tour at the end of it. So let's get started. First things first, gotta take everything off the shelves. want to think about is what I want to do with books that I don't really like and also don't really have any particular attachment to them. This book, The Nautical Chart, I got it at a thrift store one time to read on a plane or on a trip. It was like 50 cents and I hated it. I hated this book and I still have it and it's on my shelf and I don't really know what to do with it. Like, do I have one shelf that's kind of the prison where books go that I really don't like and I also don't really care to display? I don't know. Something to think about. Okay, I think I need to clean these shelves next because they are very dusty. Okay, now we are clean and ready to start refilling the shelves again. These are the Billy bookshelves from IKEA. I think they're in black oak. I had wanted these shelves in this specific spot in our bedroom since we moved in. When we first moved in, the master bed was actually in this position. And as you can see from previous clips, there's kind of like a little alcove here that was the perfect size for a bed, but it felt really cramped and I felt a bit claustrophobic sleeping under here. And so I knew from the very beginning that I wanted bookshelves here and we moved our bed across the room. I think when we first moved in, I measured this area and it was literally the exact dimensions of 3 Billy bookshelves, give or take a quarter of an inch. And so I knew exactly that that was what we needed to do. It was going to be the easiest, it was going to be the cheapest, and it was probably going to be the fastest, except that these shelves were sold out for like a year and a half. Not just this color, these shelves, Billy bookshelves were gone for forever. And I had an alert on my email that was supposed to tell me when they were back in stock, anytime they were back in stock. And even if they did come in for a split second, I would very quickly go to the IKEA website and it'd be gone instantly. It was so sad. And finally, we were able to catch these when they came back in stock, but it was a journey, let me tell you. I think I'm gonna start with the middle shelves here just because that feels like the feature focus. When I did this the first time, I had all my fantasy stuff over here, probably just because those were the first books that I ended up putting on the shelf and I was just working left to right. But I think I want all my fantasy books, especially the ones that I really want to be a feature, to be right in the middle. So I'm going to start here and see what happens. It bugs me so much not having the paperback of this to match all the other paperbacks. I can't believe how perfectly all of these fit on this shelf here. Throne of Glass, ACOTAR, Crescent City, and Fourth Wing as well. Although when Onyx Storm comes out, I will probably have to move those in order to keep the series together. In my last iteration of shelves, I had a lot of books that were turned out or turned on their side just to add a little visual interest. For now, I'm just going to put them on the shelf normal and then maybe restructure at the end of it. This is an example of splitting up series that I have read and haven't read. So I had Powerless and Reckless together, even though I have read Powerless and I have not read Reckless. I think I'm going to split them up and see how that feels for a couple weeks. I think this shelf is where I'm going to put all of the Book of the Month Club books that I have read already. Do I want to try and color code them? I'm abandoning the color-coded method. It's just not working. The only exception to this rule of Book of the Month being up here is that I am going to take all of the romance Book of the Month books and put them on a romance shelf, which maybe will go here. So hard. Okay. Like this, what do I do with this? All right, I think we're done for now. I put my entire list of books that I haven't read all the way on the right now, whereas before it was kind of split up randomly throughout the shelf, but now everything, whether they are in the middle of a series, whether it's a standalone book, everything is over here. There are even books on this list that I know I'm not planning on reading, and I still have it over here just because I have the space. I feel like one day I will have to be a little bit choosier over what goes on these shelves, just because I will run out of room eventually, but for now I even have books that I probably won't read on here. All of my books from Book of the Month fit perfectly on the top 2 shelves, give or take a couple of books, and then the rest, it sort of just waterfalls down. I try to put books that are part of a series that I still am reading on the next shelf, and mostly those are all fantasy series. So you'll see One Dark Window here, Reckless, we've got the Shadow and Bone series over here, the next 2 books in City of Brass, a couple other fantasy books that I'm excited to read in 2025, and then going down into the next shelf, there's a couple more fantasies, a couple of romances that I haven't read, and some literary fictions throughout there. It kind of got a little bit difficult to stay organized towards the end, but the top shelves, the ones that I really care about, feel pretty organized there. This middle shelf here is the one that I really care about. It's where I put all of my fantasy books and the books that I really love specifically to feature and focus on. Obviously, we've got our SJM shelf here, Throne of Glass, into ACOTAR, into Crescent City, and then I did put the Fourth Wing first 2 books on this shelf as well, just to fill it out. I also put a couple fantasy series on top that I really love. We have the Lunar Chronicles, some V.E. Schwab books, Divine Rivals, Will of the Many lives up here, although I'll probably find a new spot for that when book 2 comes out at some point. On the third shelf, we're just continuing to fill it in with some fantasies, and then underneath I have my kind of nostalgic series and fantasy series, obviously Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, some other Rick Riordan books. Moving down, still kind of continuing in the series and the fantasy specifically, but ones that are more closely related to my childhood and younger reading days. Hunger Games, Divergent, I put Lord of the Rings on this shelf. And then the bottom shelf is a little bit of a graveyard of books that I just don't love and don't really care about that much, but I did need to find a place for it, and I kind of wanted it to live on the one fantasy shelf as best as I could, so R.I.P. Powerless and Lightlark. This shelf was the hardest and probably the one that I will end up moving around the most. I have a bunch of random books at the top that are kind of just like literary fiction or mystery books or ones that didn't really fit in a very specific genre. Some that are of common authors. For the most part, this is a little bit of an eclectic offering of books. But then the next shelf starts our Book of the Month Club books that I have read, and I thought that I had nearly 2 full shelves in the last iteration of how these shelves were set up, and maybe I did, but I moved all of the romance books that Book of the Month had to a romance shelf specifically, and that's kind of where things got messy. That's kind of where I started to mess up a little bit. But I have my Book of the Month Club here, and then the shelf underneath that is sort of a weird mix of sci-fi, dystopian, and then the beginning of my romance shelf. And underneath that is the true romance shelf with just a little bit of bleed over in some more romantic fantasy type, but I kind of made the decision to keep books like Emily Wilde and The Traitor's Kiss in the romance section. And then moving down to the last 2 shelves, this upper one is kind of what I would consider to be more of the classic books and also the older books that I associate with my homeschool days. So I have books like Mara, Daughter of the Nile on here, some Mark Twain, Red Badge of Courage. And then this bottom shelf is also a bit of an eclectic offering. It is my nonfiction books as well as any duplicate books that I have, and I do actually have quite a few duplicate books. There's some Rick Riordan ones in here because once my husband and I combined our libraries, he also had a lot of Percy Jackson books, and I didn't want to get rid of them. His were way nicer. These are actually my books. As you can see, my dog totally chewed up one of them. I was very sad that day. I had literally just gotten it from the bookstore and Aspen just destroyed the thing. So there's tape on that one, and the other books I had gotten rid of the dust jackets because that was in my chaotic era. And then weirdly enough, I have another copy of Divine Rivals as well because I thought I had lost the original copy and then ended up finding it. So that's it. That's kind of what we're working with right now. I don't feel like this is 100% finished as far as organization goes, but I do feel like the books are all kind of in the spot that I want them to be in. Now it's a matter of maybe going back and making sure that all books by the same authors are in the same spot. I might start turning some books and putting some books on their sides just to add a little bit more visual interest. For now, I'm actually liking them all just kind of straight across and more traditional, but I might start adding in a couple more places to feature books just because I do have the space. And that romance/sci-fi shelf is really bugging me right now, but but I'm not totally sure what else to do with it. So for now, I do feel happy about it. I feel like we're starting 2025 in a good spot, especially as I am adding books and being able to move books from the TBR shelf over to the red shelf. I now know where they would go. They wouldn't just kind of move to a random open spot. So that definitely feels better, and I do feel better overall. That took a lot of work. If you're still watching at this point, thank you so much. As always, it's awesome to hang out with you in this corner of the internet, and well, we'll see you next time.